All right, let's jump right in. For what feels like forever, the whole debate about tech in schools has been framed like this big showdown. Screens versus books. Digital versus analog. But what if that's the wrong fight? What if the real answer isn't about picking a side, but about inventing something totally new?
I mean, we've all seen this pendulum swing back and forth like crazy. One minute, it's all about the 100% digital classroom, endless resources, getting kids ready for a digital future, the whole shebang. The next minute, there's this big push to go back to analog, just pen, paper, physical books, for that deep focus. Both sides have a point, but let's be honest, neither feels like the complete answer, right?
So, this is the big question for us today. Instead of trying to pick a winner in a flawed contest, what if we could actually build something better? Something that takes the incredible power of digital tools, but actually respects the science of how our brains are wired to learn and remember things. And to really get a sense of how high the stakes are, we don't need to guess. There's a perfect, real-world example of this exact pendulum swinging and swinging hard. We're going to look at what's happening in Sweden. Now, this is not some small tweak they're making. Sweden, a country we think of as super tech-forward, is pouring a huge amount of money back into physical textbooks. And on top of that, they're starting a nationwide ban on mobile phones in schools. And their reason? Their top researchers are saying the huge rush to go all digital, it was never actually based on solid evidence? Whoa, that is the pendulum swinging back in a massive way. Okay, so what Sweden is doing forces us to ask a really important question. It's not enough to just wave our hands and say screens are bad. We have to get way more specific. We need to figure out exactly why they often don't work as teaching tools, because only then can we actually design something that does. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. When a teacher uses a big projector or a smartboard, what is actually going wrong inside the student's brain? What are the specific ways these tools are failing us cognitively? Well, it really comes down to three main problems. First, screens are temporal. The information pops up, and then poof, it's gone. That makes it incredibly tough for our brains to build a lasting memory. Second, they're not physical. You lose all those little cues like the feel of a book or remembering where a paragraph was on a page that actually help anchor information in your mind. And third, they basically default to what you could call TikTok mode. You just sit back and consume, you're not actively building knowledge. Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem. Now the fun begins. Let's start brainstorming. How could we actually blend the physical and the digital in a way that gets around these problems? What would a real hybrid learning tool even look like? Some of the first ideas that come to mind are pretty cool. Like, imagine having a 3D printed model of a human heart that just sits in the classroom all year. It's a physical thing you can always refer back to. Or what about pointing your phone at it and seeing an augmented reality overlay of the blood flow? Even those smart notebooks that digitize what you write are a great step. But they're still kind of separate tools for separate jobs. And this brings us to a really powerful, kind of counterintuitive idea in design. Sometimes the biggest breakthrough doesn't come from adding more bells and whistles. It comes from imposing a very specific, very deliberate limit.
It's a concept called an elegant constraint. It's basically a rule you set for yourself that forces you to be smarter. It makes you cut through all the noise and focus only on what is absolutely essential. And in a classroom, that could be a total game changer.
So what if our elegant constraint was just a number? 5. Just 5. Imagine telling a teacher, you only get 5 slides or 5 reference images for this entire lesson. Suddenly, that 30-slide PowerPoint that just washes over everyone is impossible. You have to choose only the most critical pieces of information. That one simple rule changes everything.
And this table just lays it out perfectly. The old way, a projector zipping through 30-plus slides, it just encourages you to sit back and passively consume. But the new way, you have 5 persistent reference frames. They stay put. They don't disappear. And because you only have 5, the real work, the messy problem-solving, has to happen on a live, active surface, like a good old-fashioned blackboard. The whole mental mode switches from passive to active.
All of this thinking, the problem with screens, the need for physical objects, the power of constraint, it all starts pointing in one direction. It points toward a breakthrough design for a single tool that could bring this whole philosophy to life. So here's the core insight. We need both. We need a surface for those 5 key reference images that just stays there, providing context, and we need another surface for the dynamic, real-time work of actually teaching and learning. The real breakthrough would be figuring out how to combine them into one thing. Okay, but here's the immediate problem, right?
Everyone who's used a Kindle knows that e-ink is awesome for a static page of text, but it's famously slow to refresh. If a teacher tried to draw on it in real time, it would be a laggy, frustrating disaster. So that's not the solution. Or is it?
And this is where the genius, incredibly simple idea comes in. You don't make the e-ink to the fast stuff. You start with a standard, durable glass whiteboard, the kind that works with normal dry erase markers. Then you simply put a large e-ink panel behind the glass. The ink's only job is to display one of your 5 static background images. The teacher just draws on the glass like they always have. There's zero lag because the drawing isn't digital at all. It's brilliant.
And that right there is the killer pitch. You don't have to explain some complicated new technology. You don't need to call the IT department. It's a tool every teacher on Earth already knows how to use. It's just a whiteboard. It just now has a memory for the 5 most important things.
So you see, this is so much bigger than just one clever product. This really points to a whole new philosophy for classroom technology, one that's simpler, smarter, and way more focused on how humans actually learn. So why is this such a winning idea? Well, there's zero training needed. It gets rid of expensive projector bulbs. That 5-frame limit isn't a bug, it's a feature that actually improves teaching. And here's the key, it gets the value right. Everyone else is trying to replace markers with a fancy stylus. This idea realizes the markers are what works. It's the background that needed a memory. Honestly, it's a huge open goal that nobody else seems to be aiming for. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. For the past decade, we've been chasing after classroom tech that's flashy and complex. But maybe, just maybe, the best technology, the technology that will actually make a difference, is the kind that does its job so simply and so well that it just fades into the background, and we barely even notice it's there.